Welcome everyone to Living with the Times. This week's Torah portion, Vayechi, is the last portion of the book of Genesis, the book of Bereshit. And there is something unique about this Torah portion. It's called a Parsha Stuma, a closed portion. And the reason is that this week's Parsha begins on the very same line in a Torah scroll as the previous one. There's no other Torah portion like this. And so it's as if this portion is connected to the previous portion, and therefore it's called a closed portion. Rashi gives two reasons why this is so. The first one is we're ending the book of Bereshit, and in this Torah portion, Yaakov passes away, as does Yosef. And then we begin the following week, the book of Exodus and the slavery in Egypt. And so Yaakov says the reason it's written in a Torah scroll this way, closed with no space, inferring that it's a new Torah portion, is because with the coming slavery, the hearts and the reality of the people became closed. He brings a second reason, and that is later in the Torah portion, Yaakov wants to reveal to his sons what will happen in the end of days. And he gathers them together and says, I will reveal to you what will happen. And then he just starts giving his children blessings. And there's no mention of exactly what is going to happen in the end of days. And Rashi tells us because as he was about to reveal this, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the spirit of prophecy, left him. And he was not able to reveal what would happen in the end of days. So it was closed off to him. There's more, we'll call existential reasons why this is called a closed portion. The name of the portion is Vayechi, which means, and he lived. And it says he lived for 17 years from the point that the Torah portion explains that he came down to Egypt. And they were actually the best years of his life. He's reunited with his whole family. He's reunited with his beloved son, Yosef. And he lived. And we're told that the 17 years that he lived, 17 is the numerical value of the word tov, good. And yet, this parsha talks about his death. And so there's a paradox here. And so in a broader existential way of looking at this, everything that happened to the patriarchs and the matriarchs is archetypal energy. And so the idea that this portion is closed is telling us that, in essence, we all live in a closed portion. But what does that mean exactly? It means that even though we have free will, it's a very, very important part of Jewish tradition and belief that we have free will and we're responsible for our actions. Nonetheless, there are so many factors that limit our free will. We're dealt a certain hand, and we're born in a certain family, in a certain generation, a certain race, a certain religion, certain genes, and we have no real say over that. It says in Pirkei Avot that we're born against our will, we die against our will, and we will be judged against our will. So even though we have free will, and we can live, vayechi, still the factors that I mentioned, plus our genetics and nature and nurture, we're dealt a certain hand. But nonetheless, the Parsha is telling us, vayechi, that we can live despite all the factors that determine so much of our life. We still have so much free will to play that hand any way that we want. There's certain people who are born into great wealth, with great minds and everything, and they squander it. Other people are born with different limitations, physical, mental, and they somehow succeed tremendously beyond anyone's expectations. And also, the whole idea of a eternal soul that was in a heavenly abode that comes down to a physical, material, somewhat flawed world is also the concept of a closed portion. But nonetheless, the name of the parsha is Vayechi, and he lived. And that's why in certain religions or philosophical paths, the idea is to get off the wheel, that in a certain way, being in a physical material world is practically a punishment, and that we want to escape from the great limitations of this world. In Judaism, we recognize these limitations, but we make the best of the hand that we're dealt. And that's why the word l'chaim is such an important word, and it's so connected to this parsha, that despite it all, we want to live. We want to rectify, to heal, to improve the world, to make the best of the world, to enjoy the beautiful world that God has given us, and always to say l'chaim, l'chaim. So I want to give everyone a blessing that despite all the limitations that we have, and everyone has their own baggage, everyone has their own challenges and obstacles, but nonetheless, Judaism and Torah teaches us l'chaim. Make the best of it for yourself and for everyone around us. And with that, I'll end with a hearty l'chaim.